Gentlemen, welcome back to the mess, which is my other desk, and in today's episode we are going to be looking at the WingWing Z-84. Now, if this is your first time joining in with this series, this is a series. We are looking at the models which you can buy for 50 quid or 65 USD or less. And as we've seen, there are some fantastic models which you can buy for 50 quid or less. And in the last episode, which was the Wingnetic, we found out that there are some utterly crap models which you can buy for 50 quid. But let's get to potentially, and again, I don't know where to rate this one. It is one of the best flying wings, or one of the best models which you can buy for less than 50 quid. And it's right up there with the Tech Sumo and Bonsai. I just don't know how to separate it. And the reason why I'm struggling to separate this WingWing, well, this specific model. So let me just make sure that you can see this on the camera. Let me move that back a touch so you can just admire her. Yeah. The WingWing Z-84. It's, I don't know how to explain this one. Is that it's one of those Jackal and Hyde models, as in that if you're not a very experienced pilot, and yeah, I wouldn't suggest it is your first wing by any means, because yeah, while it does hold its own in a unscheduled landing, it would definitely make like a good second wing. But that said, it's a Jackal and Hyde model, and the reason why I'm giving it that kind of persona is because you can absolutely rag the nuts off the WingWing Z-84. But on the flip side, the second that you take your thumb off that throttle, the WingWing Z-84, she'll just glide. And glide forever as well. It's one of my favourite things to do with the WingWing Z-84 is do a couple of laps and cane the nuts off it. Do loops, do spins, do spirals, fly inverted, which she flies inverted, alright, to be fair. And absolute cane the living daylights out of it. But then, the second I get bored of that for like a nanosecond, is that you just take your thumb off the throttle and she just glides forever. And I've got such fond memories of my previous one. And by the way, this is my second WingWing Z-84 which I've had. And if you haven't seen the episode in my previous experience with the WingWing Z-84 is that I turned it into an FPV platform. I'll get to that a little bit later. But the only model which I've ever lost, and which ironically I wasn't flying it at the time, she got lost in a field. And then actually went through a combine harvester. I'll put a little link to the episode of her being found in the top right hand corner, whichever way that is for you. But yeah, that was my first one, and I'll get to the FPV conversion in a few moments. But the WingWing Z-84 has a very special place for me personally, because there are very few flights which stick in my mind as being I'm actually going to say it was probably one of the best flights I have ever had with a model airplane. And the reason for that was that up at one of the flying sites where I fly to is that we had a lot of wind coming at us, maybe anywhere between 20-25 mile an hour wind, quite a strong wind coming at us. And it was going down to say 10 and then going back up to 20. So it was quite tricky to fly any model, in fact. And I took the WingWing Z-84. She absolutely cut through it in the sky. But then I soon worked out that I could make her dance. And I mean this, and again, you can tell just by my tone of voice, and is that it really was one of those remarkable flights which I will never ever forget, which was she just danced across the flight line. And that's what I did. 30 minutes flight time I had out of her, just dancing across the flight line. Just had her nose into the wind, and there was plenty of lift there. Well, it's a flat field. So I just ran in her with a little bit of up, well, probably quite a bit of up on her. And yeah, I just danced her all the way across the flight line and then danced her all the way back. It was one of those magical flights which you just never forget. And it was nothing like flying on a slope, because slope you've always got lots of uplift, but this was a flat field. And the WingWing Z-84, she did, yeah, so well indeed. And as you can tell, I'm really fond of the WingWing Z-84. And it maybe you've seen, yeah, I don't know if you've seen anybody else fly one of these, but they really are the Jekyll and Hyde of wings, because you can absolutely cane the nuts off. And we'll get to a couple of different setup options in a moment. But on the flip side is that, yeah, they will glide and you can have so much fun with them. And sometimes the fun isn't caning the nuts off them. And that, like I said, that one flight sticks in my mind. And I just kept her on the flight line and she just danced all the way through. Fantastic model. So I've got some notes with me to make sure I stay on track. So what have we got? Number first, cost, 30 quid. Okay, so we'll say about 40 USD, something like that. So well within our 50 quid budget for this series. You can buy the WingWing Z-84 from numerous different places, and I'll put links to GearBest, which tends to be the cheapest but takes the longest shipping. You've obviously got Hobby King, which tends to be more expensive and you have to pay for postage, but it does normally mean you get it within a day or two. And also we'll get onto the setup, which might be better if you're going to be ordering components at the same time. And also Banggood, which also their support's like a million times better than Hobby King's. I'm sure you've heard the conversations about Hobby King support compared to Banggood support before. Basically, Hobby King support is dire. Banggood support is a million times better. It's night and day difference. So yeah, I actually bought this one from, my first one I bought from GearBest. The second one I bought from Banggood. So yeah, that's the model. Firmly fits within our budget. It's as I've mentioned, it's Jekyll and Hyde. She can go mentally fast and she will dance in the wind, that's for sure. Oh, I also didn't mention, and again, this is why I wrote some notes on this one, because I felt it really, really important to help you give an insight into this model. And it will slope soar. Now, the thing is with the WingWing Z-84 is that, as I discovered on the slope, is that it will slope soar. That's for sure. But to get the most enjoyment out of the WingWing Z-84 on the slope is that you require one of the, well, I would personally strongly suggest that you get one of these devices. I'll pop it up on the iPad for you, wherever it is. Ta-da! There we go. So that is a orange 3-axis stabilizer, and I put this into my former WingWing Z-84, and it absolutely transformed its flight characteristics, and there was no dirty wing dropping going on, whereas when I flew it a couple of times first on the slope, is that it did have a few death spirals going on, and once I put this stabilizer in there, it completely transformed it, and I didn't have a single death spiral for it. And by the way, the other reason why I like this stabilizer is because the first channel here, or the first one of the options on here, is to turn the stabilizer off. So with that one, with your Tyrannus, you can hit the switch and you can turn the stabilizer off or on, as the case may be. So yeah, super cheap, about 14 quid, we'll say about $20, and absolutely transformed the WingWing Z-84 for the slope. So yeah, good job, I checked my notes. Now, onto the power system. So let me just move this around so you can see it on the iPad, which you kind of can see. So I'm just going to open this one up. Oh, and immediately a tip for you. Trying to pull it off the top like so really doesn't well. And you can also hear that really did clamp down there. Is that what? Oh, it clamped down so well. Pop one of the magnets out. Sorry, this one was in an unscheduled landing a short while ago, and I'm still in the process of repairing her. So I'll stick a bit of CA glue down there. So let me just show this to you on the iPad. So up here on the nose, you'll notice that I've got a nice big, make sure I get this on the camera. There we go. I've got a nice big extra strong magnet, and the same down here on the back of this, because I don't thoroughly trust the little plastic clip in the middle to hold the lid down. So I've put an extra magnet on the front, 2 little motor magnets out of a quadcopter motor at the back, and I've put the reverse of that actually inside the model itself. So you'll see back here, there's a little square magnet here, and then there's another round magnet on the front, and that really does help to hold the lid down. Also for the top case as well, you'll see what I've been manufactured here, which is just some of that glass reinforced tape to make 2 little hand or finger pulls for that to help get this lid off, because what I found on my first one is that if you keep squeezing this bit, is that the paint starts coming off and it doesn't look as pretty as what maybe this one here does. So yeah, that's just a simple little tip, 2 little folded back on themselves pieces of tape, and that works really, really well. Now, when it comes to the setup for your WingWing Z-84, what I would personally suggest, and again, this is a tried and tested setup by me for both for my first model, which we even did, like I said, we even set her up for FPV, which I'll get to in a few moments, but also on 4S as well. And on 4S, this thing totally rips the sky new one. And by the way, I would strongly not suggest a 4S setup for you to begin with. Try it on 3S first, just to get used to the characteristics. So for the setup, I would suggest a Turnigy D, and let me put this on the camera for you. It's a D2826 2200 kV motor. I will put a link to this motor in the video description for you, and likewise for all the other parts which I mentioned. So let me move that out of the way. Now, if you're going to be running her on 3S, then you don't need anything more than, let me get on the camera, than a 30 amp ESC. That's more than adequate for this model. So we'll put that to one side. Now, for the rest of the electronics underneath, mine doesn't actually have servos in there at the moment. And the reason why that is because I killed both the servos in the really bad crash. I don't know if you can see the brown stain down here, which is mud, as I did a flat bottom landing with her, and that's why I killed both the servos. And at a very conservative, all I'm going to say is loosely, she was doing 100 miles an hour plus. And the reason why I can tell you that she was doing 100 miles an hour plus is because she was running a D2826 motor at the back on 4S, and my current setup is a 60 amp ESC at the back, and I run it with a 1.3 4S battery on the front with a 6x4 prop on the back. Yes, that is out of the specifications for the motor, but I don't know if you know me very well, but basically I class motors as consumables. So yeah, absolutely bonkers, and I flew her right across out of this big dive straight across the flight line, and I really need to get to publishing that episode. She went across, but I had her in high rate, so she was she was doing that in the sky because I overcompensating it, and I brought her down too far at full speed, and she scuffed out on the ground. Yeah, so I was very lucky to get away with that one. So yeah, like I said, I'm really lucky. I had a small crack here, a crack across the main fuselage, and like I said, I killed the 2 servos. Oh, and I broke a propeller as well. But that's the way it rolls, you know. If you're pushing the limits on what a model can do, you've got to expect a few little brown stains from every now and then. So yeah, very simple setup, 2 servos. What else have we got on here? Oh yeah, 60 amp ESC if you're going to be running her on 4S, 30 amp if you're just going to be running her on 3S. Now that brings us really nicely on to the topic of batteries. So let me just make sure you can see these on the iPad, which you can now see. Brilliant. So you've got 3 different sizes of batteries, which I would suggest for you depending upon the circumstances. So my day-to-day use for the WingWing Z-84 my strongest suggestion would be a 1.3 3S battery. Okay, stuffed right up on the nose. By the way, you generally do need to put a little bit of extra counterweight up in the lid as well. That seems to be my favourite place to put it, or to make a little seam and tuck it right down the front of the nose. So yeah, you can run it on 1.3. That said, Craig, one of the other guys which I fly with, he runs his on a 1.8, and to be frankly honest, I have run mine on a 2.2. But this brings us to a very, very serious topic when it comes to the WingWing Z-84, which is around the center of gravity. So if we turn her up the other way round, okay, is that I'm not too sure how well you're going to be able to see this, so I'm going to get the pencil out just to make the point. So just here, if I can colour that with a pencil, is a little nodule, and that is the C of G point, and the same on the opposite side as well. So I hope these come out on the camera. You would definitely feel them with your fingers when you go to check the C of G. And the WingWing Z-84 is a model which you definitely want to run nose heavy. If you do not run her nose heavy, she will do some very peculiar things in the air. So it will, yeah, it does very strange things in the air when this one is tail heavy. So do make sure she is nose heavy, okay, so that she wants to tip forwards on you when you put your fingers on those two markers. Okay, don't use the spar as the reference point. Use the two little nodules underneath, and definitely do make sure she is nose heavy. That will get rid of her ugly characteristics of like dropping a wing, like when you're going too slow in a bend. Yeah, so C of G is a major one to point out there. When it comes to the elevons back here, now if you'd like to know how to set up the elevons for a flying wing, I've got a separate episode which will show you how to do that, and that'll be in the top right hand corner for you. Is that do run the elevons, especially for your first flight, and I'm just going to get this show you this on the iPad, is that do run it with a touch of up. Okay, so maybe 1 or 2 millimeters up on this on the elevons, okay, on both sides. It's just the way they roll, to be honest. I've always run mine with just a tiny little bit of up in them, and while we're on the topic of launching, okay, so there is some really nice big thumb grips underneath. Let me just show you on the iPad. Look at the size of those. Okay, you can get a really good hand on her. Okay, now when it comes to launching, okay, you want to get her up at about a 30-degree angle. Okay, you want about half throttle, and you really do need to give her a good chuck. Okay, so like that at 30 degrees up into the sky. And the reason why you want to do that is because this model will sag. Okay, so when you throw her, and it's like throwing a javelin, okay, but don't hold your hand in the air because she will strike you. Okay, it's the same for any hand launch model with a propeller on the back. When you throw, make sure you bring your hand down. Don't just go and hold it in the air, because that's asking for trouble. When you throw her, make sure you follow through and bring the hand down. Okay, so give her a really, really good chuck. And the reason why you want to give her a really good chuck is because these do fly better, especially at the point of launch, with some decent amount of wing airspeed. Okay, and that's why I'm suggesting half throttle and a damn good chuck just to get the airspeed up. And she will dip down in front of you. Don't panic, don't overcompensate, just power out of it, and she will fly. And again, there are videos on my YouTube channel of me chucking her off not a particularly big slope, and I left all those edits in because I did struggle for 3 attempts with it, and then I finally worked out what was going on, which is about 30 degrees, half throttle, and give her a really good chuck to get her in the sky. So what else have we got on here? Landing. Oh, yeah. Unlike this POS, okay, these things are pretty robust. My last one, I did stuff her in the ground at full speed from about 20 meters up in the sky, and it was perfectly repairable. The wingnetic, which we saw in the last episode, no. Even on a good landing, you're kind of going to break the nose on it. So yeah, very forgiving for less than ideal landings. If you do stuff her in, it's EPO. It does, and there's a lot. Let me just make a point on here on the iPad for you. There is a lot of meat of EPO foam around the nose area. Okay, so that you do stand a chance of getting it back in one piece. That was the big failing for the wingnetic, which we saw in the last episode. There really wasn't the amount of foam there which you needed. Let's have a quick look. Oh, last topic which I'm going to cover with you is that this model is absolutely fantastic for FPV. In fact, it was the WingWing Z-84 is the model which I learned to fly FPV in. Well, until she got lost and I had to move to a different model. So what I set up with my, in fact, rather than me I'll tell you what, I'll point out on here, but I'll put some photos up on your up on the video for you. And what I did is that up on the nose area, I've crafted in the board camera up on the top of the lid. I've seen people put the video transmitter back further down, the actual lid piece, but in my case I decided to put it out on the wing, and I also put the receiver out on the other wing, and I also ran her with a stabilizer as well. So one of those 3X, one of those orange 3X, so what is it? It's an RX 3S stabilizer. Is that really did help keep on a straight line, and you would be surprised that the very little current usage which this model uses when you just potter around with her in the sky. So yeah, a fantastic FPV platform. You do have to go cutting, and like I said, I've put some screenshots up earlier in this episode for you. So to summarize, the WingWing Z-84, it holds a special place with me because of that one evening where I danced her in the sky, and it was one of those magical, and I genuinely mean that, one of those magical flights. You can absolutely cane the nuts off it. It really is the Jekyll and Hyde of wings, because you can cane the living daylights out of it and go all over the sky. But the second you take your thumb off the throttle, it will just glide forever. It's a crazy model. And as always, one of my biggest proofs in the pudding is that if I did smash this WingWing up, would I go and buy another one? Yes, I would, because that is my second one. And to be frankly honest, I was quite sad the evening when we lost the previous WingWing Z-84. And what cheered me up was coming home and immediately buying another one. So, yeah, bit of a shame that the other one got smashed, well, got messed up. Well, as what do you expect for going through a combine harvester. But, yeah, I immediately went and bought another one the same evening. So, yeah, the WingWing Z-84, brilliant models. If you're looking for a good second model or 20th model, you really can't go wrong with a WingWing Z-84. You can underpower them, you can overpower them. They are rather forgiving. They are extremely aerobatic. They will slope soar, but a personal preference for slope soaring is do put a stabilizer in there. And by the way, stabilizers are not cheating. Okay, they are crash resistance is the way which I look at them, because on a slope she will tend to drop a wing. Okay, that's just the experience which I've had, even with her being run nose heavy. So with that said, the stabilizer really did transform her. Now I'm going to leave you with two questions. Number one, do you own a WingWing Z-84? If you do, can you please share your experiences with the WingWing Z-84 in the comments section underneath this episode? So for somebody who was looking to buy a WingWing Z-84, that they can read your experiences with the WingWing. The other one is that if you've got any questions about the WingWing Z-84, unlike this POS which I did in the previous episode, which the standard reply is POS, I would be more than happy to answer any questions which you have about the WingWing Z-84, because I've had two of them and I think they're absolutely amazeballs. So yeah, with that said, thank you ever so much for taking the time to watch this episode. Like I said right back at the beginning, there are lots of fantastic models which you can buy for 50 quid or less, and the WingWing Z-84 is one of those prime examples of one of the best models which you can buy for 50 quid or less. They are absolutely brilliant, and I do like mine a lot. I've been gently chipping away at her for the last couple of days, just getting her flight worthy again, and we're going to be taking her out for a damn good ragging in a day or two tops. So anyway, with that said, for myself, Matt, thank you ever so much for taking the time to watch this episode. If you have any questions, like I said, please just ask underneath this video. And as always, a thumbs up always helps. And on that note, for myself, Matt, cheerios!